Under the blazing lights of the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, two worlds collided on a night that promised both legacy and legend. The crowd was electric, an ocean of flags, chants, and divided loyalties. On one side, the golden boy of Mexico, Saul Canelo Alvarez, youthful and hungry, the pride of Guadalajara, carrying the hopes of a nation. On the other, the undefeated genius of the sport, Floyd "Money" Mayweather, an artist in motion, a man who had long turned the sweet science into a business of mastery. The ring glistened like a stage awaiting its two protagonists. Canelo, just 23, walked in with his jaw set, his gloves like weapons ready to forge history. Across the ring stood Mayweather, calm, calculating, his eyes cold but focused, a man who had seen every style, solved every puzzle. When the bell rang, the air itself seemed to tighten. Under the dazzling lights of the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, a night of destiny unfolded, a collision between generations, between the unblemished arrogance of youth and the perfected genius of experience. On one side stood Saul Canelo Alvarez, 23 years old, undefeated, powerful, carrying the pride of Mexico and the weight of a nation's dreams upon his red gloves. On the other, the living embodiment of precision, Floyd "Money" Mayweather, a man who had mastered the art of not getting hit, the 8-time, 5-division world champion and the unbeaten king of the sport's modern era. The atmosphere was electric. Green, white, and red flags shimmered beside the stars and stripes. Chants of "Canelo, Canelo" clashed with waves of "Money, Money" as the two stepped forward under the unforgiving spotlight. Every camera, every cheer, every eye in the building knew they were witnessing something historic. The meeting of future and present, youth and mastery, ambition and perfection. The ring announcer's voice thundered as Floyd's name echoed through the arena. And with that, the air turned dense with tension, every heartbeat sinking to the rhythm of expectation. The opening bell rang, and what began as a feeling-out process quickly revealed the mind games of a master. Mayweather, calm and calculating, tested Canelo's reactions with sharp jabs and quick feints, controlling the distance like a puppeteer pulling invisible strings. Canelo pressed forward, trying to impose his power, but Mayweather's shoulder roll deflected nearly everything. Every time the Mexican star attempted to close the distance, Floyd tagged him with a lightning jab or a sneaky right hand down the middle, forcing him to reset. The MGM crowd roared with every punch thrown, sensing the brewing tension of two elite crafts colliding. Alvarez tried to invest in the body early, hoping to slow the older man down, but Mayweather's timing was a riddle wrapped in rhythm, impossible to decode. He made the younger man miss by inches, smiling as Canelo's gloves sliced through air. The contrast was stark, the eager challenger swinging with passion, the veteran replying with precision. By the end of the second round, Floyd's jab had already carved its authority into the fight, dictating tempo and space with chilling ease. Canelo was learning firsthand what so many before him had realized. Brilliance is invisible until it punishes you. As the third and fourth rounds unfolded, Alvarez tried adjusting, doubling up on his jab, stepping in behind combinations, but Floyd's defense remained impenetrable, like glass that refused to crack. Canelo's shots bounced off Floyd's arms and shoulders, each attempt drawing counter jabs and right hands that snapped his head back with surgical precision. Mayweather wasn't just defending, he was teaching. Every missed hook by Alvarez was answered with a flicking counter that reminded him who was in control. The Mexican warrior landed a few glancing blows, enough to excite his corner and the crowd, but Floyd's eyes never wavered, calm, cold, calculating. Even when trapped on the ropes, he slipped and pivoted, turning defense into art. The commentators marveled at his composure, noting how Floyd didn't just react, he predicted, In those exchanges, Canelo's frustration began to surface. His youth betrayed him, showing small flashes of impatience, as if he realized that no matter how hard he swung, the target kept disappearing. Mayweather, meanwhile, was in rhythm. His feet gliding, his jab painting patterns, his right hand landing like punctuation marks on a masterclass in control. The MGM crowd, once divided, now started to murmur in awe. They were witnessing dominance disguised as grace. Midway through the fight, Canelo's corner urged him to press harder, to take risks, to force exchanges. But every risk was punished. In the 5th and 6th rounds, Mayweather began to open up, stepping into his shots with more authority. A crisp right hand found its mark, followed by a stinging left hook that drew a gasp from the crowd. Alvarez, still brave and unbroken, tried to respond with a burst of power punches, but Floyd slipped, rolled, and countered with cruel efficiency. His movement was poetry, small pivots, subtle steps, and just enough distance to make Canelo swing and miss. The young Mexican began to realize he wasn't fighting a man. He was fighting a shadow that struck back. The chants grew louder, desperation filling the air, as the crowd sensed the tide had turned fully in Floyd's favor. Mayweather, smiling between exchanges, started walking Canelo down, not just evading, but controlling. His jab now was a whip, his right hand a scalpel, dissecting openings that only he could see. The audience saw something rare that night, a great fighter humbled not by brutality, but by intelligence. By the 7th and 8th rounds, the story was clear. Floyd Mayweather was painting a masterpiece. Every movement, every feint, every punch had purpose. Canelo still came forward, his spirit unbroken, but the weight of Mayweather's accuracy was crushing. Floyd's punches weren't heavy, but they were exact, each one landing on the right spot, each one a reminder of how far mastery can separate from mere talent. Alvarez's face began to show swelling. Near his left eye, small bruises from the pinpoint jabs that kept finding their mark. The Mexican crowd, once deafening, grew quieter as they watched their young champion struggle to touch the untouchable. Mayweather wasn't running. He was standing his ground, slipping punches, countering, and making Canelo look ordinary. The older man's composure was mesmerizing. He fought like a chess grandmaster, moving in slow motion, always 3 steps ahead. Commentators praised his defensive brilliance, noting how even in the clinches, Floyd smothered offense with veteran craft, using forearms, shoulder bumps, and head movement to sap Canelo's confidence. It wasn't just defense, it was domination, disguised as restraint. Round 9 arrived with a glimmer of hope for Canelo. He landed a stiff right hand and forced Floyd momentarily to the ropes, the crowd erupting in belief. But Mayweather, smiling again, rolled with the punch, returned fire with a blazing combination, a double left, a straight right, and pivoted away as if untouched. It was a master reminding his pupil that he was still in class. Alvarez threw more, but Floyd's rhythm broke him. Each jab from Mayweather pierced through the guard like a rapier. The audience marveled at the precision, Floyd landing over 50% of his shots, a statistic unheard of against a fighter of Canelo's caliber. It wasn't raw power or reckless aggression that defined Mayweather's brilliance. It was his ability to make the sport look simple. He dictated not just where the fight happened, but when. Every second ticked to his tempo, every round written to his script. Canelo fought bravely, but the truth was undeniable. He was fighting a man at the peak of his genius. The MGM Grand was now witnessing not a battle, but a boxing symphony. The championship rounds began with Canelo still pressing forward, his pride refusing to fade. In the 10th, he swung with renewed vigor, landing a few to the body, hoping to slow Floyd's movement. But Mayweather absorbed and returned with clinical counters, punishing the slightest mistake. The older man's conditioning was immaculate, still bouncing, still sharp, still reading. Canelo's youth could not crack the riddle. Every time he tried to trap Floyd against the ropes, the American escaped like smoke through fingers. The crowd alternated between admiration and disbelief. Mayweather was now openly smiling mid-round, talking to Canelo, taunting him with every slip and counter. The young Mexican champion, though battered and behind, kept swinging, fighting for pride more than victory. His determination earned respect, but Floyd's composure commanded awe. By the end of round 11, even Canelo's corner had fallen silent, their instructions drowned by the inevitability of what they were witnessing. The student had heart, but the teacher had mastery. The 12th and final round began under a storm of applause, not of rivalry, but of respect. Both men met at center ring, exchanging brief combinations, their faces reflecting mutual understanding. Alvarez tried to make it rough, to force a statement, but Mayweather danced away, jabbing, countering, making him miss until the bell's echo sealed the masterpiece. Canelo's gloves dropped slightly as he exhaled, not in defeat, but in realization. He had shared the ring with genius. Floyd raised his hand, smiling, barely sweating. The crowd roared in appreciation. Not for violence, but for brilliance. This was boxing distilled to its purest form, precision, timing, and control. The commentators summed it up perfectly. You can't beat what you can't touch. Then came the moment of truth, the scorecards. One judge, inexplicably, saw it even at 114 to 114, drawing gasps and disbelief from the arena. But the remaining two judges corrected the narrative, awarding Floyd Mayweather the majority decision victory. The crowd responded with a mix of cheers and laughter. Even the absurdity of the draw couldn't overshadow the obvious. Floyd had schooled a prodigy. With that, his record advanced to 45-0, another night, another lesson, another legacy-defining performance. As the lights dimmed and the camera focused on Canelo, his face told the story. A young warrior humbled but not broken. He had been taught by the very best. In the years that followed, that lesson would forge him into the champion he would one day become. But on this night, under those lights, the MGM Grand belonged to one man, Floyd "Money" Mayweather, the master of distance, the architect of timing, the untouchable genius who once again reminded the world that brilliance, when perfected, is its own kind of violence.